Okay, you got it. Can Mike and I talk?
Yes. All right. Hi there. This is Brian.
Mike, thanks.
Movie Reviews and More. Women on TV.tv. iTube 247 out of Tennessee. And today's view number is 4,625,826 views, up 4,000. So with that, Mike, tell us who you are and introduce your friend, because it was because of Mike that I met through Rachel. So Mike, talk about this and welcome Rachel.
Well, I'm Mike Szymanski. I'm an occasional co-host with Brian on this show and having a lot of fun doing it, especially from my porch in the Hollywood Hills. And I had the pleasure, the absolute pleasure of meeting Rachel Mason a little over a year ago when she asked me to help her with some pictures that she was doing for this documentary, a little documentary, which turned out to be the most fabulous thing ever. It opened Outfest last year, and it's a beautiful, heartfelt story about her family, although you wouldn't know it from the title of it or from the way it's promoted. There's a plane coming over. Sorry. You're being strafed. And it's called Circus of Books, and she used a couple of pictures that I gave her, and I was delighted to have some of my friends depicted in it, and it is the hit of Netflix right now, and it's a wonderful, wonderful story. I can't promote it anymore.
Well, maybe I can call it the gay hit of Netflix.
Well, and also Rachel, you know, the fun thing about that, Mike and I, we've known each other going back to at least 1996, if not earlier than that. But the thing is,
wow,
done stuff on the adult side before. So I have met your parents before. My old
oh really?
Was the leading authority on the world on the adult side. So we were always promoting the store. We just hadn't met before, place throughout, because I had your email. And I'm like, Mike, I know her from someplace, where it's from. So yes, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on. And yes, we have always loved what you and your family have done. So there, how do you like that?
Wow, that's so sweet. That's awesome. And do you know there's even more full circle? I just, does the name Buck Angel ring a bell?
Buck Angel was always, well, you know what? I'm thinking of Buck Adams, but yes, I do know who he is too.
He's a transsexual porn star. So he's my lover. And
good for you.
I just figured I would say that. I know, I would say that because my whole world is now like completely unified, I think, around the world of gay porn. But yeah, so Buck and I, you know, basically have been doing lots of different stuff to promote the film, because I came into contact with him through the Circus of Books, and you know, when I was a lot younger and perusing the store's, you know, print material, he was in a magazine. So anyways, I just figured I was curious if you ever might have reviewed any of his videos. But as Mike, you were a prolific writer on the adult side of things, right?
Yeah, and I think I gave Buck some of his first reviews and did a story about him, and I've known Buck longer than I've known Rachel, so that's even cooler.
Well, if he walks in the room as I'm doing the podcast, I'll tell him to stop in and say hello.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
And then also, Rachel, it was through Mike at his old house or still houses in the Hollywood Hills that I met RuPaul back in 1996 or 19.
Wow.
That's when I first met him at one of Mike's Halloween parties. Look where he is now.
That's the house that Rachel came to.
That's so cool.
That's where Rachel came to that house where I looked through some old albums that I hadn't opened in decades of shows.
Well, we should talk about that story, but in a quick little, before I forget, Mike, I would love to be in touch with RuPaul, because as I go into this Pride Month, that now's the time to have people with big voices on social media help promote. So yesterday we had Kathy Griffin. She just shouted out the film in the coolest way. And you know, the intersection with her is amazing, because she's always been a massive gay ally, but she's also always been a gay porn supporter. You know, she really loves and appreciates the activism in gay porn. And last year, this last year I attended the Straight Up Gay Porn Awards with Buck, and she was the host, and she was so funny, and she gave a Lifetime Achievement Award to Dirk Daner of the Tom of Finland House, and it was so moving because she really said, gay porn is art, and she understands the actual activism of gay porn, and so when she made that shout out, it was so profound, because if you see her film, what she did to fight the government and fight Trump in particular, and how they tried to screw her.
Yeah.
She's the ultimate hero of this moment. So it meant a lot to me that she did that. But I want to reach out to you to get RuPaul's info, so maybe RuPaul would share it, because
Ru anymore, but we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out together.
Is that
because
is that what you needed Bruce Valanche for?
No. So another little thing here, gosh, it's such inside baseball with this show. So top secret, I'm in talks with another leading man of gay porn to do a doc. You can maybe guess who that might be about, and he's featured in Circus of Books, but he's a bit of a can of worms to unpack. So this person is, Bruce and him are very well known. They're very good friends. So I just figured I would try to, have a conversation with Bruce about dealing with him. Anyway, I can just say it. It's Jeff Stryker.
I know who you were talking about, and he and Jeff worked on that play together. So
right, fascinating guy. But
and then with Rachel, I wanted to surprise you with Mike, and I knew you guys knew each other, but I'm like, I'm not going to tell her. I'm just going to have him on.
That was so awesome.
Already knew.
Well, I had to write to Mike to get Bruce's contact info this morning. Well, you know what, Brian? So it's really funny. What was I about to say? Now I'm blanking. God, my memory.
Well, we caught you with a bunch of surprises, so that's all it is. That's understandable, right?
Yeah. No, it's been a really interesting experience just promoting this film, because in a strange way I've become like a gay porn / porn activist, because in all the mainstream outlets I get asked these ridiculous questions like, so how do you feel about supporting an industry that promotes sex trafficking and child abuse? And I'm like, wow, is that the actual reality of how you think the porn industry is? It's been a fascinating thing. I have to educate on the one-on-one, that's like saying the restaurant business promotes food poisoning. People come at the porn industry with these questions. You're like, it's so shocking. So I've become this sort of de facto ambassador.
Did you have any preconceived ideas before you knew more about the porn industry? Because I know you had lived around these people when you were younger in the bookstore, but I just wondered if you had any preconceived ideas.
I mean, it could be because I'm a somewhat open-minded person in general. I don't judge people. And also, I just, of course, knew all the people. I probably, if anything, thought they were more cool than the average person. The people in this industry are just, first off, all the people I ever met were gay, which meant that I loved them immediately. And then, gay men, that was just my instant, it's one of those things. My fag haggardiness is just so burned in. I'm just an instant fag hag to any gay man I meet and especially in the store. I just loved these guys. So, I don't know. I had nothing but love and admiration. And I always I know I have probably the exact opposite of what the Christian right must have. So I have to get my head into that space of okay, how do I have hate and fear in me so that I can understand that? Because all I have is love and respect, but it's weird. Actually, it was so interesting. Over the weekend, I was listening to this incredible story, this guy named Daryl Davis, who's a Black man who went out of his way to reach white Klansmen and have conversations with them one-on-one, and single-handedly managed to get them, many of the top leadership, to turn in their KKK robes and just disavow the whole thing. And he's, it was so interesting because what he was talking about was that they would say to him things like, well, actually, to be honest, I never even had a conversation once in my life with a Black person. So they would have all this insanity built up, but then he'd be like, okay, well, hello, nice to meet you. How are you? And they would be so shocked that he wasn't some insane image. And then on the flip side, there's people who have that vision of white people that is, you know, this sort of like, we have to find ways to just, you know, open that door. So when I hear people like, aren't pornographers like scary, psychotic child molesters? I'm like, wow, okay, well, hello, nice to meet you. No, you know, it's similarly like people have these ideas and they're so baked in. So, I mean, I know I don't look at my mom, and that's where she's been like the ultimate like Yiddishy Jewish woman who's like, you know, her Jewishness is so burned into every little bit of transactional stuff that she does in the film that I feel like it kind of softens every blow that people have when they're like, dildos, oh my God, you know, the wall of dildos. She's like, I can notice it, but I don't really actually look at it.
But you know what? That was such a great line in the film because your mom is really a strong figure. But what I was really interested in the fact was that you never know until you talk with people where they came from. So because for me, years, the only people who did stuff, Mike on the gay side, but also on the adult side, mainstream side, as that writer, that teacher, that speaker, and everybody who wanted to reach out to review their films. And I would always laugh at it. So we would always be at junkets together, you know, and I'm like, if they only knew that I'm at my nude and topless bowling event this weekend, you know, Memorial or Labor Day week, I'm calling all these people. Or when I did the X-Rated Awards, that James Gandolfini and Julianne Moore would come and do research for Boogie Nights. They all came to our events. Nobody knew.
Oh, cool.
Cops never found out about it. This goes back to 1996, Rachel. I started helping in 1994, my old co-host. And so when Bill and I and Michael and I get together, we had the funnest time because he was the leading authority on the X-rated side, but he also wrote on the Hollywood Express. You remember that magazine, mainstream movie, for 40 years. He was the person that brought business. So that's how I knew, hey, you know what? Never judge anybody because you just don't know where they come from and you don't know what we're doing. So when I see Tony Curtis on his couch and I'm walking in and he's dating our friend Daniel, imagine what my surprise was. Because I'm like, is that Tony Curtis? Of course it's Tony Curtis. That's how I found out.
Right.
I could relate what you were doing and stuff like that.
Brian knows a lot of the women, more women's side of the porn industry, and actually probably he could attest to this too. I find that the people in the adult industry are far more spiritual than most other groups of people that I've ever met. It's really interesting.
Wow.
They have a really amazing kind of spiritual connection to, you know, just the earth and the world and other people. It's really interesting.
Well, I think they're therapists. I mean, when you look at the work that Buck did, for example, and also just so many people, they're there to serve a therapeutic necessity. I mean, humans have been staring at sexual activity since the dawn of time. It's actually one of our like foundational things in our life, eating, sleeping, and sex. It's sort of weird. It would be like, let's create a giant veil of shame around sleeping, you know? Okay, well, I know that the Bible contributed to this whole mess, but imagine if that was just, the veil was lifted on this thing. I think it would be seen as a therapeutic art, pure and simple. And I was actually listening to this show called The Butterfly Effect. I don't know if you heard it, John Ronson. And, you know, it was so interesting because he was talking to sort of these custom made fetish porn people. I'm sure you know all of them. They're and I forget one of this woman's name, but she was talking about this really specific thing, this subliminal, like the only reason you would need a fetish video that was so specific, the guy wanted his stamp collection burned. I was like, wow, this is completely a therapeutic thing. He is actually resolving his internal demons and conflicts through fetish porn, and way to go. You know, maybe he doesn't have to pay for 8 years of therapy.
Well, the other thing is about that is the film that you were talking about, but you know, before Black Klansman came out, that film opened South by Southwest 2 years ago. And again, it did well. So when it comes to your film opening it up, what was that feeling like for you? And what have you heard from the people from Netflix and how well it's been done?
Wow. Well, I have, and the film has done actually really well. In the very first week, the numbers are over 1 million streams, which is amazing. And I'll tell you something. Actually, that's so great. It was the movie Black Klansman. It was all about Daryl, right? Okay, because I actually heard Daryl speak this weekend, and I didn't even put the. Oh, no. That Black Klansman movie was about the cop. That's
Yeah,
a
that was the
different
Spike Lee
person.
film. But here's
The
because it's
Spike
South
Lee
by
film.
Southwest, yes.
Totally. Okay, that's so interesting. Yeah, because there's actually two different
Yep.
people who did similar things, but that's awesome. Anyway, yeah, so my film got the amazing, now I think of it as a luxury because films aren't getting this right now during the coronavirus, but we got to premiere at a film festival. Who knew that that was all going to be taken away from us right now? But it premiered at
I knew.
Tribeca. Oh, you knew?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's heartbreaking, but I will say this. I was working very hard to book theaters for Circus of Books so that it could have a Oscar qualifying run. Because can you believe this? This little gay porn movie is getting Oscar qualified. Oh my God, you heard it here. So I had no expectation of this film doing anything more than sort of like the queerest of the queer circles. Like if it got into Outfest, I would have done my job and felt very happy. Remember, Mike, when I was making the film, I was just looking forward to making the film and having it be basically a gay film. You know, it could just be for us, or for us kind of small group of people that knew and loved the store. But it was in what was called the viewpoint section in Tribeca. So it wasn't given a competition slot, which gave me my first thought of like, okay, well, maybe people don't expect this film to actually do very well because you know, it's a film about gay porn and my family. Like, what are the chances? So it gets into Tribeca. And what happens in the very first week, it sells to Netflix, which just blew everyone's minds, and including mine. It blew out of the water. Suddenly I was getting invited to all these different cool events, and I went from being this little underdog, you know, to being the dark horse, you know, being the film that was talked about in all of the like roundups of the Tribeca 2019 films. And the same thing went for Netflix. You know, I figured, okay, Netflix got the film, it's going to be one of the 100 films that Netflix puts out, and it's, you know, God knows it, you know, how many people care about gay porn, you know. And I had the feeling that Netflix was also like, yeah, you know, thanks for having us, you know, we'll keep you in touch. And I wasn't getting the feeling that the film was going to be supported that much. And then suddenly the film comes out right in the middle of the pandemic, and the amount of interest was just huge, because I do think there was just this desperation for finding uplifting things on, you know, on the platform. And it just did so well in the first week. It got over 1 million views in the first week, and I'm gonna find out about the 28-day report. They give reports to the filmmakers, but you know, it's been surprising everybody. And I didn't know until very recently that Netflix was actually going to submit it for Oscars. I knew they were going to submit it for Emmys.
Yay.
But, so if this film even so much as gets nominated or talk of nominated, I say it's a win for all the underdogs out there, for all the filmmakers who are making a film about an obscure subject and can't find anyone to give them the financing. Because though Ryan Murphy has his imprint on the film, Mike, you know, I was building it up myself up until the very, very, very end. And Ryan absolutely came in and saw it and loved it and attached himself to it and helped it do really well. But this was a teeny tiny small operation. And, you know, it goes to show you that the Ryan Murphys of the world do pay attention and do look out for the little queer films among us. And, you know, he did the same thing for A Secret Love, which is also a cool little documentary about a lesbian couple. So,
and I remember Ryan when we were working at Entertainment Weekly together, and he was nobody. So
really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow. What was that like?
Well, we were covering celebrities together, and he, you know, I remember him one time telling me at a party that's like, you know, I want to do these, you know, stories that you know, and told me about a couple of them, and I was like, yeah, right. But he did it. He was the guy.
Wow, he's on the cover of Time magazine now holding a television set.
It's great.
Wow.
You
What
know
a
what's
win for the
funny?
gays.
You know what's funny about that, Mike? I said the same thing to Ava DuVernay, when she was a publicist. Brian, I got this film
Wow.
that I want you to see. And I'm like thinking, she's a filmmaker? And I'm like, you're a great publicist. And then literally a year and a half later, I'll never forget it. It was at the African American Museum downtown. She's representing the Wayans and a bunch of other people. And Mike, she also used to send us stuff. I had no idea. I have to say, this is the first time that I was wrong. I didn't see it coming. I didn't. So when we see each other,
Wow.
Mike, I can totally identify with that,
Someday, you know what? Someday we're going to be talking about how we had Rachel Mason on the show, and now she has a couple of Oscars under her belt. She won't even give us her phone number, and
Rachel, you're going to always remember.
Quentin Tarantino. I was on Quentin Tarantino's set of Reservoir Dogs. He couldn't get an interview to save his life, and I was interviewing him, and I got to sit down with Harvey Keitel, and I was there for the really great scene that Michael Madsen did where he cut off the ear, and I actually watched that live and all of that stuff. Oh wow. Yeah, it was great. And and he gave me a signed script with his phone number on it, and I saw him years later, and I said, you used to give me your home phone number. I don't have it anymore. And he says, well, sorry.
That was Quentin.
Yeah, and he lives right up the hill there, not too far away.
Well, hey, I feel like I'm in good company then. The universe must be sending me a message. But you know what? I will have to say, I never forget the people that were there for me. Even, I'm at this stage right here, and I'll never forget the first time I got a film threat review for my first art house musical feature film. I was telling Brian about it. It was touring the indie art circuit, and occasionally somebody would, say, hey, I actually like this. So I'll never forget that first real reviewer who devoted, a full, 800 words. I was like, oh my God, he actually watched this and he cared about it. And, it was so, it's always this important thing for people. And I bet Quentin and Ryan remember you guys and Ava.
Oh, they remember,
it doesn't, yeah.
Well,
it's a
here's
big
the thing,
deal.
Rachel, about that. So Quentin Tarantino, myself, and Kevin Smith were the only three that actually worked in video stores. Those two went producers and directors. And I said, I don't want to do that. I want to tell people about good films. That's where my film comes from, working in a video store. That's how it happened. And then so when I went to Quentin at the Four Seasons, or Larry Flynn at the Four Seasons, I hated them because Quentin would pull up with his pussy wagon, all yellow car, and at the Four Seasons, if you imagine that. And then Larry already has lunch there every day. So I was like,
I can imagine.
Because I was like, good for her. One, she's a female director. Stuff before this, but all of a sudden she's taken off. And I said, good for her. But I was even more happier for your family. Talk about that with that.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's, it's so interesting because my family are not, they're not like public people. They actually are like shadow people. My mom even says she's the one person in LA who probably does not want to be famous. And, my dad was at the bank the other day. He said, my dad is, actually really, I have to say, he's pretty much like a happy-go-lucky guy. There's almost nothing. He would have been happy if he never left his family's, house in Burbank and still worked at the hardware store out there, camera supply store. I mean, he just is that guy who's good-natured. But so now his new thing is he'll walk down the street and says, hey, people are waving to me and saying hi, and when's the sequel coming out? And so, but my mom, on the other hand, is of course the opposite, the ever critical, like, well, I don't like being famous. She's always telling me. So, people come up to her and ask about the movie, and but yeah, that's what it's been like. I didn't expect that that the film was going to be so big. I had no idea. But actually, it's so interesting you mentioned something about Ava, because she is so important for female directors. And before the quote unquote Me Too movement a few years ago, I had a meeting actually with a female executive producer, and I have this other script that I've written. I write a lot of stuff too in fiction, and I'm looking forward to all these different projects. But this was before I was launching Circus of Books. I was writing the script, and I'm still working on getting it developed, and it's almost like a sci-fi musical fantasy. And I was having a meeting, and the woman just said to me, you know, Rachel, I just hate to break it to you, but you're going to learn the hard way. I think you're just not going to be able to direct this, even though it's really awesome and I love it, but you just won't direct it. And I was like, well, why? And she was like, because you're a woman and they don't give women these kinds of budgets. And I happened to look down at my phone, which I shouldn't do, but I was just like, managing my anger. I look at my phone and Twitter had just sent me a little tweet. And honestly, it was the gods or goddesses sending, and it said on Twitter, Ava DuVernay breaks the glass ceiling for women directors, getting her sealing the deal for A Wrinkle in Time, having a budget of over $100 million to feature women of color in the lead roles, Oprah, and which was actually a hilarious cameo for Oprah. I don't know if you saw the movie where she's a fairy godmother. Anyway, I went and saw the movie in a theater later, but I was like, wow, you know, go Ava. She shattered the ceiling for all women. And what's so powerful, of course, as you know, is that as a Black woman, it was like, okay, to all you people out there, go fuck yourselves. Like, you know, really, I will always just love what Ava symbolizes, you know.
And it was sad
like,
that a woman told you that. I mean, a woman of all things telling you that, you know, it's just like, come on, try to be.
But that is the world for women. Women get put in the position like, okay, just let me tell you something. And a lot of women are saying it to sort of, I want to soften the blow for you. And so, you know, and to think of what Ava must have been put through, I can't only imagine. So
well,
she just has done
Rachel,
something on this huge level. So
Rachel, what you said about that, and Mike knows this person who used to be, she's not a publicist anymore. It was the publicist that would let me in because I was always the small outlet. You were supposed to be syndicated, which I never was. But, you know, the publisher felt sorry for me, or they liked the stuff doing with Bill Mike at the point when we started doing public access in 1994. But that led to that. And you talked about Film Threat. So I was there when Chris Gore started Film Threat. Chris say, if you want to get famous, I'll never forget he said that. You want to get famous, piss Walt Disney off and have them sue you. Then you become famous. And I said, no, you never want to have that happen. No. But this is when we all started doing public access back in that day. So from that, I remember days that the publicist would call you. She'd call me, she didn't call me, and I go, hey, there's a movie called The Wood coming out. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, Brian, I can't invite you. I go, because you're not a Black outlet. And I'm looking at the phone, looking at my right hand going, but I can't change the color of my skin, and I'm gonna go see it. And I go, it says movie reviews and more, not Brian Sebastian. The more part is everything. It doesn't matter what it is. And I never forgot that. So because of that, I never covered anything that was Black. I didn't get invited to any of the Black stuff. And I never went to the NAACP, the Image Awards, none of that stuff.
Wow.
To this day, I said, I will never do that. And I've kept my word. So on the flip side of that, like I said, I got 4.6.
Wow. Well, that is the flip side. That is absolutely the flip side.
4.6 million views without a network, without a book, without a website. So you can kiss my Black ass at that point. That's how I look at it.
Well, there you go. Because, you know, it's so interesting. You know, that is the flip side. And I think there's always another side. And of course, I have my little view as somebody that came at things from this angle, and wow, that is a terrible story. Oh my God.
Well, and so that's why when I'm calling publicists, Stan Rosenfeld, who does the publicity with Sunshine Stacks out in New York for Tribeca, he's our friend. You know, he reps Robert De Niro, George Clooney, Danny DeVito, Morgan Freeman, all of them. I'm good with them. But, you know, that's why I was upset with the publicist saying, you know what? I wanted to see this film. I didn't care about doing the interview with you. I wanted to see the film, and then I'll work my way around. So that's what I had to do. I get pissed off because it's still about the film and it's about the story. This is a full story about a family. That's how I see it.
Right.
So Rachel, I want to talk about, you know, you were talking about your family being, you know, so private. And the one person I loved so much and probably identified with a lot was watching your brother Josh kind of out himself to the world in your movie and how he feels about it. And I mean, I remember seeing it thinking, boy, he's not going to have a problem getting a date from now on. But I was wondering how he deals with that.
Well, you know, he's actually got a fiance that a longtime boyfriend for many years, who's a really sweet guy. However, I will tell you, all the comments I got from all over the world were, love the movie, is Josh single?
Very cute. He is
So,
cute.
you know, well, but it's so funny because Josh, just like my mom, didn't expect this movie to do this well. Nobody, I mean, that's what I genuinely, this film is really a dark horse. I was supposed to move on to already a bunch of other things, but instead this film has totally changed my life and career and been the film that will open all the doors for me. And I didn't expect that at all. I thought this was going to be the film that landed in the One Archives, you know, and lived in a place where only the most hardcore film threat gay obsessives of the world, you know, enthusiasts, you know, who would find it. That's really like what I thought was going to happen for this film. So I don't think Josh intended to out himself to the world. I think he intended to probably out himself for the niche group of people that tends to find Rachel Mason's stuff interesting, which is, you know, my devoted obscurophiles, is that a word? People like, you know, people like you guys who care about indie films, not necessarily the Netflixes of the world getting out this mainstream. So Josh did a great service. You know, I think what he did by being so honest and truthfully, I didn't know the depth of his closeted high school experience because I was so wrapped up in my world of, you know, loving the RuPauls and the super out queens who were my best friends. And, you know, my world was the Ron Athey and Vaginal Davises. Do you know them? They were like the super wild performance art, you know, gender bending freak show LA people. And so for my brother Josh, I think I had introduced him to a world of queerness that was like super out of control and like not positive. It was just too much. And so, you know, he said your world was too gay. And on the other hand, you know, my mom and her conservative world and, you know, promoting hardcore gay porn in this super like deep hidden way, I realized he was really caught in this very almost super painful space between all of it. Just, you know, where can we see just a regular gay guy, you know, like a Pete Buttigieg? You know, those people were not anywhere. And I think that's what I have to thank the Ryan Murphys of the world for right now. Honestly, you know, remember what a gay person was on television in the 90s? They were the butt of jokes.
Yeah.
They were the faggots, you know, they were just, you know, not people, you know, you could say that word on TV. It was like, it was really, I don't need to tell you this, but that's what it was. So, or you were like me, who was like, hey, everybody, I don't care about your culture because I hate it. And my people are Frida Kahlo and all the countercultural weirdos and John Waters, you know, of the world, and the RuPauls who are going to do their own thing anyway, regardless. But if you wanted to be mainstream and gay, I think that was a hard space. And at least that was what I recognized with my brother Josh. And it gave me so much admiration for the people who did the work of gay porn, which is actually why I sought Mike out. Mike, when I met you, I said, I need to actually memorialize the people who did gay porn. So in the film, when you see the shots of the men that fade to black, they fade into the actual, they fade into the background. Brian, do you know what I'm talking about in the AIDS section of the film? So those are Mike's pictures. And I went to Mike and I said, do you have any personal photos from archives? Because I want to get the most humanitarian images. So I got pictures from Mike and I got pictures from another really wonderful artist in New York who happened to take photos for Mandate and Honcho. And those guys were actually all very well established and beloved gay porn stars. And I really wanted to pay tribute to them because they did this work that I think of as humanitarian work for the gay community without knowing it.
Yeah.
So we got like 60 seconds. Mike, talk about your books real quick and how people can find you.
Oh, yeah. I got my Mickey Ski books on Amazon now. and my Mike Szymanski books on Dachshunds, and just Amazon.com. You can look them up. There'll be links on the site.
Rachel, give your social media links, and for those people who haven't seen it yet.
So go to Netflix and type in Circus of Books, and you'll find Circus of Books out there. And then if you want to find me and the music that I make or anything else, just look up Rachel Mason artist on Google, and I should come up. And then also I'm on Instagram at Future Clown, all one word. And so I'm not that hard to find. Circus of Books, Rachel Mason, you'll find me. So how do we find this podcast or this show?
As soon as it's done, as soon as it's uploaded, I put it up on 8 different platforms. And then at the end of this month, I'm airing it on WomenOnTV.
Women on TV. Great. And so we can shout it out to the world from there. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for having me.
The Art of Montague on Rachel very soon in the next week. That'll be on The Art of Montague, and which is also a platform for movie reviews and more too.
Yep.
Cool.
Any future things, Rachel? And I've been wanting to say this the whole time. You look gorgeous. I didn't get a chance to say it.
Thank you.
And I wanted to thank you for coming on. And I'm sorry I was late, but now you know why I was late and who I had on before.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Sinbad. No, and I was all getting frazzled because my famous mother was coming to get my son. So there you go.
Tell her to blame it on Sinbad.
Appreciate the compliment.
China.
I will. I'll call him up and complain.
Oh no, you'll see him. We're doing technology shows now, so with
wow. Well,
for Michael and for Rachel, please go on to Netflix, watch Circus of Books. I'm Brian Sebastian, movie reviews and more. WomenOnTV.tv. iTube247 out of Tennessee. And if you see someone with a smile, please give one of yours because the world needs it.
Oh, that's a great line.
Great end.